We are now recording. Standard practice is to start by asking you to say and spell your name.
All right, Alan Gandelman, ALLANGANDELMAN.
All right. And I guess I'm interested in two titles from you. One is, what is your position with the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors Association?
Okay, so I am the founder and president of the New York Cannabis Growers and Processors Association.
Okay, and then I assume you own or operate this farm. Tell me about that.
Yes, I'm also the owner of Main Street Farms and Head and Heel. So we are a certified organic vegetable and hemp farm, and then we also have all of our hemp and CBD products under the name Head and Heel.
Great.
Yeah.
You guys have like a storefront in Ithaca? Or something like that?
We don't have a storefront, but we sell at farmers markets all over the state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you done some marketing recently? I've heard some marketing around.
Yeah, we do marketing on the radio and all.
SKG maybe?
Yes.
Okay,
I think we do have radio, Head and Heel radio ads, and
Gotcha.
yes, and we have Shared Roots sells our stuff at the Binghamton Farmers Market as well at their stand.
All right, great. All right, so like I indicated before, let's get out of the way some of your bio stuff. So how long have you been in agriculture?
I have been farming for the last 10 years as the owner of Main Street Farms.
Okay, so just tell me a little bit more about first Main Street Farms. What sort of things do you grow? I assume you have a CSA. Just give me the general outline of that business.
So Main Street Farms is a certified organic vegetable farm. We've been doing this for 10 years. We have a CSA, which is our box program, and then we also sell at farmers markets in Ithaca and Syracuse. We also provide vegetables to the school districts in the area, as well as wholesaling vegetables down to restaurants in New York City.
That's great. So when did you start getting involved in hemp?
We started growing hemp in 2018 when New York State first legalized industrial hemp. We were one of the first people in the state to have a license to grow and process hemp for CBD oil. And we got into it at that time because in 2017 I had Lyme disease and was really sick and was a medical marijuana patient, and then started taking CBD to relieve a lot of my symptoms, and it worked amazing. So as soon as New York decided to legalize industrial hemp, immediately I was like, we need to grow hemp and make CBD just because it was working so well for myself. At that time, no one knew what it was. It was not a very popular item.
So then tell me about how your hemp and CBD business has grown since then.
Our hemp and CBD business has grown exponentially since 2018, as people realized what it was and it became more popular. The stigma also kind of started to fall away, and so every year our sales have increased, and our sales for our hemp has surpassed the sales for our vegetables.
So how can people, and now you're selling the CBD under the name Head and Heel.
That's correct.
And so how can one access Head and Heel products?
Our products are sold all over the place, including Wegmans, the Binghamton Farmers Market, the Ithaca Farmers Market, locally and online through our website,
which is
headandheel.com.
That's easy enough. All right, so then when was it that you say you're actually the founder of this association? So
yes.
Take me through that process.
Yeah.
When did you found it and why?
Let me think about this. 2019, 2020, okay. I founded the New York Cannabis Association at the end of 2018 because at that time, when we were farming and growing hemp for CBD, we also were setting up our infrastructure for processing CBD and manufacturing all of our products, and there was no real regulations in place. No one knew the rules. We were getting conflicting answers from Albany about what we could do and what we couldn't do. And so working in the food and food access, I was familiar with policy and being on nonprofit boards, and so I started the association really just to help guide the state to come up with good regulations that would help farmers grow their businesses, provide a safe product so that when consumers were buying New York State CBD, they felt good about it, they knew it was safe, and they wouldn't have to continue shipping it in from out of state.
Now, if I recall correctly, those regulations came out sometime in the last year, and folks in your industry were largely pleased, although there was some issue, I think, with hemp flour being excluded.
Yes.
So tell me, where do things stand now? Is that still the case, and are you guys still not happy with the exclusion of hemp flour?
So we did pass new regulations in 2019. They just came out last fall, so it took quite some time. And during that process, at the last minute, yes, New York State pulled hemp flour out and said it would be an illegal product. Our growers were very unhappy because we're made up of a lot of very small hemp growers and farmers, and so hemp flour is a big market for them. And to work around this, we worked with Assemblywoman Lepardo, and she passed the hemp flour bill in February, and so now hemp flour is legal again after a short illegal hiatus. And so now that the adult use bill has passed, hemp flour and all hemp products are going to be rolled into that situation.
So now my understanding again is that part of the marijuana legislation was to set up some sort of office of cannabis in Albany that oversees all three aspects: the adult use, the hemp, and then the medical marijuana. How does your association, speaking on behalf of your association, how do you feel about that framework?
We agree and support the framework of creating one office of cannabis management, because all of the things that we do as hemp growers and processors are exactly the same that we would be doing, and hopefully we will be doing, for THC products that will be sold in adult use dispensaries.
All right, so that leads me directly to a question I was eventually going to get around to. Is it your hope to start growing THC marijuana?
It is our hope to start growing for the adult use dispensaries in New York State, really as soon as possible. We have all the infrastructure, the greenhouses, our processing facilities. We've been doing this for years now. We do seed to sale tracking. We're very experienced, not just myself, but hundreds of our association members, farmers across New York State. They would love to get into it, and really we're just waiting for the go-ahead from New York, but we have everything in place.
Right, because we're in this odd situation right now where, from my understanding, I keep using that qualifier because you're the expert, I'm not. You know, with the governor's signature, it suddenly was legal to possess marijuana and consume it, but you still can't buy it, grow it, or sell it in the state. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You could bring it in from a contiguous state where it's legal, say Massachusetts, right?
Technically, that's not legal.
Oh, you can't even bring it into the state?
No.
So you can have it, but technically there's no legal way to get it.
That's correct, yes. So you can possess up to 3 ounces of cannabis right now legally. You could smoke or consume cannabis anywhere you can consume tobacco products. And so now we're going to be in limbo where no one can get arrested for having up to that 3 ounces of marijuana, which is amazing. Like, thankfully, you know, no more of that. That needed to happen, and now it's a waiting game to see when we can grow and legally sell. So currently anyone is having to buy from the illicit market or the legacy market and continue doing that until some regulations are in place for the legal market.
Gotcha. All right. So what sort of lessons have been learned so far in hemp? And again, here's some of the things I've heard along the way. First of all, that not all hemp is created equally. Some is more intended for the oils and the CBDs and the medicinal aspects, and then others are more along the lines of making ropes and paper and building materials,
all the textiles
and what have you. And from what I heard, a lot of small farmers heard through the grapevine that the money was in the oils and medicinal, and went gangbusters with planting all this hemp, and if they didn't have contracts ahead of time for people to take it off their hands, that it's still sitting in barns across upstate New York. And Am I somewhat on the right
Yeah,
track here?
absolutely. You're extremely well informed on the topic. So, yeah, that is what happened, and it happened with every agricultural commodity and boom and bust cycle. All of the money currently in hemp is in the medicinal side, the CBDs and the oil and those kinds of things. The issue that we faced is farmers grew too much of it. Not only in New York, though, it's a national problem in Colorado and Washington and Arizona, and everyone was expecting the federal government to have more clarity around hemp and CBD and where it could be sold, but they still don't have enough clarity. For example, you can't go to Walmart or Target or a big box store and buy any CBD products, and it was assumed that they would start selling those and we would need a lot more hemp than we currently do. So it is true that yes, some people could not sell their crops and they might have over speculated, but I think that's to be expected with any kind of new industry. I mean, we're still in the baby stages of hemp, CBD, and cannabis in New York.
What about banking regulations? I know that Schumer was very involved in that, and I don't recall if that was just specific to the hemp industry. I know the Kalen Kasdan,
Yeah.
he had some issues with that at one point.
Yes.
And from my understanding, Schumer paved the way to clear out some problems, but was that strictly for hemp, and do those problems still exist for adult use cannabis?
So Senator Schumer did come here and visit the farm and did a press conference together with myself actually in 2019, and we did make a lot of headway on banking for hemp at the time, so we have a lot less problems in hemp banking. The next issue is banking for the THC side, the adult use cannabis market, because that is still federally illegal. And so New York has to deal with the banking issues as we move forward for the adult use industry. That has not been addressed yet. There is the Safe Banking Act, which is floating around Congress right now, but it has not passed yet.
Without action on the federal side, is there really anything the state can do? Because aren't the banks totally reliant on their, federal, being on the good side of the federal government, I'll say?
Yes, but smaller banks and credit unions are also subject to New York State's banking rules. I believe it's called the Department of Financial Services. And if you're small enough and you're only operating in New York State and you can show compliance, you actually can get into banking with marijuana companies. That's happening all over the country, in Colorado and California, etc. Because ultimately people do need banking services, payroll services, etc. So it does happen, and for better or worse, probably better, it's all the small local banks who are servicing the cannabis companies, which I think is better for our local economy anyway.
Right. So another sort of speculative thing I've heard often is that once this thing gets going, the Philip Morrises of the world are going to swoop in and corner the market, and all the little guys won't have the volume or the mechanization to really compete in the marketplace, and there won't be a significant role for small farmers in any form of cannabis. Is that a legitimate concern?
It's absolutely a concern from New York small farmers that large corporations will come into the state and take over. And unfortunately, it's already happening in the medical program. We have several very large companies operating here in New York. Some of them have just announced massive expansions, and we are not happy about that as small growers, because as these large companies are able to fund their speculation and build $100 million facilities, as farmers, we can't do that until we get licensed. And so we're right now kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting for the state to get these regulations out so we can start building out infrastructure, hiring employees, and getting ready, just like the bigger companies. So we're trying to slow that down. The state, in some ways, wants its own farmers to succeed, but has not been proactive to actually making that happen in cannabis quite yet.
Do you concern yourself at all with some of the concerns around social justice in terms of wanting to make sure that communities of color or other communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs somehow now profit or benefit from the legalization?
Our association has a diversity and equity committee. We are very concerned, and we want to make sure that those people are the first people to get licensed in New York State, especially to get dispensaries up and running first and foremost, so that they could be first to market. We absolutely believe in, prioritizing those licenses, erasing the fees, and creating incubators both on the farming side and the business side to help people who have been negatively affected by the war on drugs to get their businesses up and running. One of the issues that we're concerned about comes back to the banking issue. Is a lot of these people are coming from the legacy market, so they might have been selling cannabis for the last 10 or 20 years to support their family. They might not have great credit scores or bank accounts, and so when they're going to go to sign a lease and rent a space to open a dispensary, they're not going to have that business history that other larger companies or entrepreneurs have. So New York needs to really be aware of this and create a program so that the people from that legacy market can, as fast as possible, open up their own shops. Because if they don't, the larger corporations, the bigger companies from out of state will come in, they'll get the best real estate, they'll be able to do the best advertising and marketing, they'll be first to market, and that will be a huge, huge loss for our economy.
All right, so at this point, I think you've referenced through your answers a number of things your association would like to see, but are there other things? Just give me a sense of your overall platform in terms of what your ask is of Albany right now.
Our current ask of Albany is to give our farmers licenses to grow THC immediately. There's no need to wait for 18 months. It's totally ridiculous. We can get growing right now if they would allow us to. The thing that Albany doesn't fully understand are growing seasons. We can only plant cannabis in May and June in New York State. We're already missing this year, and it takes 9 months to grow and bring a plant to market. So the earliest we're looking at as small businesses is planting May of 2022 and bringing crops to market January 2023. And so if they keep sitting on the sidelines, we're not going to be able to get a crop in the ground next year, and we're going to be missing years of economic booms, and by that point it will just simply be too late for us.
And is this a crop where each year you grow it, you get better at growing it? Say you're taking seeds or cuttings from last year's plants, that sort of thing, and perhaps does it take a few years to get up to your maximum capacity?
There is a learning curve to growing the crop. Fortunately, we've been growing the same exact crop in the hemp world for years, and we know exactly how to do it. And we have enough growers in New York State to supply the entire New York State market from day one. We will absolutely have no shortage of cannabis with our small and mid-sized growers around the state. We do not need any large corporations coming in and setting up giant facilities. It's completely unnecessary.
All right. I mean, we could talk on and on and on, but I mean...
Is that enough?
I think we're...
Yeah, you covered all the good points. That was fantastic.
All right, great.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Especially if it's a